Okay, we'll start with a quick prayer in the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread,
and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. So I think today we will complete at least the third part, which is named as the fire sermon. We remember the fire sermon is the sermon by, any student remembers? The fire sermon, whose sermon?
That's a good question. You gave us a very, very long break. Now you can't ask such other questions. I think that's the famous sermon by Buddha.
Okay.
It's good that I know.
So somebody was taking notes.
Yeah.
So Buddha's famous fire sermon. Sometimes people compare Buddha's fire sermon and Jesus' sermon on the mount. So famous fire sermon. The fire is the fire of desire. Humanity is burning on the fire of desire. It is that way. And we've been going through the lives of different people, especially that young typists and young man carbuncle, continued by a little discussion on this music, the music continuing through London, different streets of London, and mentioning the city, London. Later we'll find that it's not just London, but all the cities which are the wastelands of modern era. Now we'll conclude with this section. We'll conclude with a series of songs. Actually, there are 3 sets of songs. That's what begins now. And it is in the notes, T.S. Eliot mentions that this is the 3 songs by 3 Thames daughters. River Thames. Most of the cities are on the side of rivers, and here London is on the side of at the side of River Thames. And this song is in the notes named as the Thames daughters are singing, but then there is a reference. Perhaps with that reference, this becomes important. The song refers to the famous German opera. In which there are these 3 songs by Rhine daughters, River Rhine. German man,
Yes.
where is River Rhine?
The north starts from the northwest.
Yeah, of Germany. Yeah. So this is the famous. Now the background is important. Wagner's opera does Rheingold. The Rheingold. That is the name of the thing. So these are the song of the 3 Thames daughters begins here. They speak in turn, these 3. So Eliot is referring to Richard Wagner's opera. How do you read it?
Which one?
Götter
Dämmerung.
Okay. The Twilight of the Gods. Part of the 4 opera cycle Yeah, again, Jaman. Yeah.
There ring. Oh, okay. Opera cycle. There ring. This Nibelung.
Nibelungen. The ring of the Nibelungen. And the Eliot wants us to think of this, three Rhine daughters in this legendary opera. As we come across his own Thames daughters. So there is a parallel between Thames daughters and Rhine daughters. Because the three songs end with a refrain. Wailala, Leila. This refrain is from this German opera. Now, maybe very briefly, what is this? There's a Rheingold that we are referring to. So the ring of Nibelung consists of operas, Rheingold, and the ring cycle starts with Das Rheingold, where three nymphs in the Rhine River have gold taken from them. They had been guarding this legendary, mythical gold. And the thief he forges the gold into a magical ring that gives power, but only if the maker forswears love forever. He has to give up love forever. Then only he can make this ring into a magical, this gold into a magical ring. The ring eventually comes into the possession of the great warrior Siegfried. So in this, the nymphs attempt to persuade Siegfried to give them their gold back. He does not. And is later killed for the ring by the son of the original thief. The Rhine daughters get their gold back as the rising Rhine floods and extinguishes Siegfried's funeral pyre. So this background of the famous opera, I already mentioned most of these references, most of these incidents in the wasteland. This refers to famous works of art, paintings, music, or literature, and a variety of other things. So here he is referring to this Rheingold opera. No. Yeah. Okay, we will read the first song. The river sweats oil and tar. The barges drift with the turning tide. Red sails, wide to leeward, swing on the heavy spar. The barges wash drifting logs down Greenwich Reach, past the Isle of Dogs. Welala lea, walala leelala. So maybe there is the old memories of this beautiful river, Thames River, or any other pristine nature that was the possession or the surroundings of any modern land, but all that is gone. The river was so beautiful, River Thames was so beautiful, but now it sweats oil and tar. All the beauty is gone. So it is sweating oil and tar. And the barges drift with a turning tide. Red sails lie to leeward, swing on the heavy spar. Maybe in this dirty, murky river, these barges are moving. but they are not so beautiful as it used to be. All the beauty is gone. The barges wash drifting logs down Greenwich Reach. Greenwich, that is we are familiar with the famous, what is Greenwich?
Greenwich Standard Time.
Yeah, Greenwich Mean Time. But it is I think the mouth of River Thames. So I think the opposite side is the Isle of Dons. So both the sides. So it is the landmarks of London or Thames River. Then this refrain is the Lala songs that Eliot has taken. The Wasteland are reminiscent of the songs sung in Richard Wagner's operas, The Rhine-Gold and The Twilight of Gods. So this the refrain is there. And we go to the second song of the Thames Daughters. Lisbeth and Leicester beating oars. The stern was formed, a gilded shell, red and gold. The brisk swell rippled both sides, southwest wind carried downstream. The peal of bells, white towers, Velala lea, Valala lea. Now, again, the continuation of the song. But this time, another very famous memory is, put here. That is, this is the reference to a famous affair between two famous people. Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth I, not the recent one. Not the recent one. This was the Elizabeth II. This was the Queen Elizabeth I. Now, she did not marry. She was keeping herself a spinster. And there used to be a lot of rumors about her affair with this Earl of Leicester, a young earl. There was also the story about, I think here in the afternoon, I'm just reading a reference from letter of De Quadra to Philip of Spain about Queen Elizabeth. In the afternoon, we were in a barge watching the game on the river. So there's things happening on the river. The Queen was alone with Lord Robert. Lord Robert, that is Leicester. Lord Robert and myself on the poop when they began to talk nonsense and went so far that Lord Robert at last said, as I was on the spot, there was no reason why they should not be married if the Queen pleased. So she used to flirt a lot with this Lord of Leicester. Now, even in, I think some of the, especially one of the novels by famous, which one? One of the novels, there is this, how Leicester, and on the other side, there was Warwick, Lord Warwick. Warwick was a senior person, but a very noble and mature person. Leicester was young and a little, flirting person. Queen Elizabeth used to keep both of them closer to her, always guessing who she will accept. Maybe giving hope to both of them. So like this flirting attitude of Queen Elizabeth was very famous. I think it is in Kenilworth. In the novel Kenilworth, those scenes are described. So this is how the old love of Leicester and Queen Elizabeth is played again today in another way. So Elizabeth and Lister beating oars. So this is the scene of their traveling through this river. The stern was formed of gilded shell, very glittering covering of this stern of this boat. Red and gold, the brisk swell rippled both shores. Southwest wind carrying down stream the peal of bells, white towers. So from all those beautiful towers, the London, maybe church towers, the peal of bells are flowing in. The towers of London glimmering white during the time when they were new and not dirty from coal fire pollution of today. This is reminiscent of the beautiful Elizabethan times. As we know, Queen Elizabeth's time. This is the Elizabethan age of the glorious time of literature and culture of England. The London was so beautiful. Shakespeare lived at that time, and some of the other poets mentioned in our this work, they all lived at that time. So there is a contrast between those glorious times. The river was beautiful, and the towers were so white and glittering, but all that is gone today. And perhaps there's Thames' daughter is crying about, sadly singing about those glorious times. Wailala, Lea, Walala, Leilala. And then comes the third song. Yeah. Tramps and dusty trees. Highbury bore me. Richmond and Kew undid me. By Richmond, I raise my knees supine on the floor of a narrow canoe. Maybe these are the voice of one of these girls, maybe a quotation, but that depicts the pathetic condition of a woman misused in a river, in that river perhaps. So, trams and dusty trees. In, of course, Richmond and Kew. These are there are reference of the old Purgatorio canto in the famous line, Siena mi fe, disfesse mi Maremma. Born in Siena, but died in Maremma. Line spoken by Ptolemy of Siena to Dante when they met in Purgatory. So this is there's an echo of Dante's words of someone born here and died somewhere else. But here is it, Highbury bore me. That means I was born in Highbury, but Richmond and Kew undid me. I was spoiled here. Perhaps the virginity or her goodness was killed at Richmond and Kew. But so it is in a way graphically described. By Richmond, I raise my knees supine on the floor of a narrow canoe. So supine, lying on my back in a canoe. So this is how she was undone, she's saying. This is what happened to me. That's why she's saying, Highbury bore me, Richmond and Kew undid me. Then my feet are at Moorgate, and my heart under my feet. perhaps showing her pathetic condition. So Moorgate, she is saying, I'm in this place in Moorgate. But then my feet are under, my heart is under my feet, she says, even below my feet. Now these are places, Richmond and Kew. These are a city on the Thames near London, and the site of the Kew Gardens, a very large garden estate in which one can lose the city completely. Now, it was a popular Thames side excursion for sports for city dwellers. So these are famous sporting places. But then this girl is saying, this maiden is saying that I was undone, or my purity was taken away in this place completely. After the event, it's referring. So repeatedly, we are reminded of how a civilization is spoiled by spoiled relationships. After the event, he wept. So something, he wept. He promised a new start. He mentioned a new start. No, it's there's a missing, no? I made, there's something, I made no comment. What should I resent? So I made no remark. There is it is not missing there. Or
It's missing from the source.
it's on here. So he says, I did not make any comment. What should I resent? She says, she's so disappointed, or she's so hopeless in her situation. She's saying, what should I resent? I think that is the most tragic situation. She has, she's even saying that, I'm in such a hopeless situation. What should I resent? That's what her remark. On Margate Sands, I can connect nothing with nothing. I can connect nothing with nothing. So completely, she is clueless with her life. In the first part itself, we remember how that, girl says, in summer, I go back south. After, these sexual escapades and the life getting spoiled, they become rudderless, just blown about in life. So this is life of this woman also. I can connect nothing with nothing. The broken fingernails of dirty hands. See how sometimes your own body shows the marks of this tragic failure. The broken fingernails of dirty hands. My people, humble people who expect nothing. La la. Finally, the third song becomes a really pathetic song where she paints the hopeless condition of this woman who has lost everything. She is in a very pathetic, hopeless condition. Suddenly there is a shift after these three songs. The third song comes to a close here. And then there is a sudden shift. To Carthage, then I came. There's a mention of Carthage. Carthage, then I came. He mentions. What is the importance of Carthage? Now, there is a St. Augustine's reference there. St. Augustine in Confessions, he mentions in Confessions, book 3, chapter 1 and section 1. To Carthage then I came, where a cauldron of unholy loves sang all about mine ears. Now, here again, the next is the burning. That is again suddenly from Buddha. Buddha, the fire sermon. I think we read it earlier thing. All things, O priests, are on fire. And what, O priests, are all these things which are on fire? The eyes, O priest, is on fire. So he's saying the fire of desire. Everything is burning on desire. Everything is burning. This is what the fire sermon. The human life is burning on fire. And Buddha's solution, get out of these, or recognize this fire, and then get out of this desire and enter into that level of sublimation. That's what he's saying. So all things of priests are on fire. He's addressing in fire sermon, he's addressing the priests. And what, O priests, are all these things which are on fire? The eyes, O priests, is on fire. Our eyes are on fire. Forms are on fire. So when we look, we see different forms. All these are on fire. All these are burning in desire. Eye consciousness is on fire. So our perceptions, impressions received by the eye are on fire. What we take in, they are burning in this lust. And whatever sensation, pleasant, unpleasant, or indifferent, originates in dependence on impressions received by the eye, that also is on fire. Everything that we take in, people are running after this lust to make. And with what are these on fire? With the fire of passions, say I. With the fire of hatred. With the fire of infatuation. With birth, old age, death, sorrow, lamentation, misery, grief, and despair are they on fire. Everything is burning. Everything is burning. St. Augustine is saying, with that burning, he came to Carthage. That's what he says. Carthage is also a cauldron of unholy loves. And these were singing all about me, around me, these lusts, desire for money, for flesh, for making things. Sometimes even spiritual people are also, sometimes even spirituality can be to get things, to make things. Jesus says, you're anxious. Why you are anxious? All the prayer is with this anxiety. So we are burning. Yeah, very interestingly, he brings together, T.S. Eliot brings together these two great masters of East and West. From the East, one of the biggest masters is Buddha. Perhaps even today, I think the West is so much, perhaps in the Eastern world itself, perhaps in India, Buddha is not so big. Teachings of Buddha is sometimes forgotten, only in history. But in the West, a lot of reflections are going on Buddha, his teachings. So many people, even from Christianity and Bible, they turn to Buddha and his teachings. So Buddha is very much sought after by the world even today. So Buddha is famous today. So Buddha's teachings, and then he, T.S. Eliot places side by side Saint Augustine, another big master of the West. Perhaps one of the greatest Christian thinkers of the 4th century, 4th, 5th century, but then, yeah, he's a 400s. No, he the most was late 4th century and early 5th century. Bishop of Hippo. So at that time, the big Roman, the Western church was perhaps there was the center, and Saint Augustine was perhaps one of the most prominent thinkers. So both of them are placed side by side, and they become the commentators on the contemporary world. And what you've seen is, even today, or today more than ever, the cities or the culture is going through this fire. They are on fire. That's what we have been seeing. Perhaps in the next part, briefly, there's a comment. The next part is very brief. But then in the final part, the 5th section, we begin reflecting on the solutions for it. Can you admit it?
Yeah, I want to switch to my phone.
Okay. So, but what is the solution, we will ask. In this part, in the 4th part, perhaps in the first 3 parts, or even briefly in the 4th part also, only the problem is presented, perhaps hinted at. The solution is hinted at when we are talking of these things. It is hinted at, but the 5th part really comes. What is where we should be going? Very beautifully in the 5th part, it comes. Anyway, so to Carthage then I came, and we know Saint Augustine. This is his early part. And there he mentions the unholy loves that he finds there. And translates enough of its context to explain how it bears upon the characters and incidents. The lovers on the river, or we found Mrs. Potter, or Eugenides the typist, the rest that have preceded it. Anyway, this becomes a commentary on whatever that has gone before it. That they are in this cauldron of burning, or in this burning, or the wastes, this wasteland. It is the product of this fire. In this fire, everything is burnt, and then this has become a desert. So burning, burning, burning. O Lord, thou pluckest me out. Again, this has reference to Saint Augustine. Saint Augustine's comment on, this part is from the 5th. I think Saint Augustine's the book 10, I think, where he is talking in detail about how he's praying, "Oh Lord, you pluck my feet. My feet are planted." He's repeatedly saying, "My feet are planted in these murky world." But oh Lord, it's a repeated phrase in this. He repeatedly mentions how the Lord plucks him out of it. He repeats it again and again. Oh Lord, how you pluck me out. Let me see. Yeah, so many times I close to that. He mentions again and again how God, Jesus plucks me out from these murky world. That means our feet are there, planted on this land. But then God comes to, it becomes a prayer. Oh Lord, you are the one who will pull me out of this mesh where my feet are planted. Oh Lord, thou pluckest me out. Oh Lord, thou pluckest, burning. I am taken out, burning from this Lord. Now, the next part, I think we will, shall we read it? Do you have the text with you, Dolly? Do you have the text?
The poem, yeah, I do.
Because actually that part is, I didn't prepare that part, but we'll read from it. We are going to the fourth section, the fourth part, and we will read it. It is very brief. How many lines? It's only 9 or 10 lines. Just 10 lines. Death by water. We can quickly go. So from fire sermon, finally you are killed. Death. What is the importance of death by water? You remember when I spoke by way of introduction, I mentioned the regenerative rituals. I mentioned. Even we had last week the Easter ceremony. There also, you see how the priest, I think in the Latin, remember right, I don't know, in the Latin rite, the candle, the past candle is taken and drowned in the water 3 times. That is, going down into the water is the death. So, in all the cultures, this death by water, the symbolic death is important. And I mentioned at the beginning of the poem, one verse that perhaps run through the whole poem is John chapter 12, verse 24. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. If a grain does not fall into the earth and dies, what happens is, actually, if you know how they, germinate these grain, first they drown the grain in water. You have to kill the grain in water. And from that killing only, from that death only, so perhaps the most suffocating death, most, I think, fearsome death is death by water. So death by water or death by fire? There is a poem by Robert Frost. It's a very short poem. Frost is asking, fire, fire or water, I think, that's the name of the, and he says, how will the world end? How will the world end? Will it, some people say that it will end by fire. Some people say that it will end, did you get it?
Fire and ice, the Robert Frost.
Fire and ice. Okay, can you read it?
Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice.
Yeah.
From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice.
That's all. A very brief poem. How will the world end? But I think sometimes it is a family. It is jolly, isn't it? You're a counselor, psychologist. Is it fire or ice finally becomes, frozen hatred? Is it by overt fighting, which is fire? Or is it the frozen hatred? So Frost is very beautiful. Fire is good. Sometimes maybe I think fire is more destructive. Here it's not water but ice. It's not water, ice. I thought it's but anyway, what we are saying is that death by water. It is, he's saying, finally, we are taken from all this wasteland. By fire, everything is destroyed. And then we are entering into a phase of death by water. Interestingly, this poem, this has got a reference to maybe this is a brief part of another poem that T.S. Eliot wrote long time back. Not long time back, I think in 1920. It was in French. Dans le restaurant. Or it is the restaurant. That's how it was. So this is these 10 lines or 9 or 10 lines are from the last part of this Dans le restaurant by T.S. Eliot. It's in French. It is a scene in a restaurant where maybe a bearer, a waiter is coming and talking to somebody, mentioning how there was a rain and his place where there was a lot of rain, and then how he and his another younger girl, they were there, and somebody coming, is it a dog coming and licking and all that. But finally, suddenly there's a shift. And then these lines that are kept here, death by water, these same lines are used in that poem. But T.S. Eliot takes those lines and puts it here. Historically, as I already mentioned in the beginning, the Wasteland was a much longer poem, but the master craftsman, his friend, trimmed it, and Death by Water also was a much longer section, but that was the majority of it was cut away. And now there is only this short part. And there is one character here. Who is that? Phlebas, the Phoenician. Phlebas, the Phoenician. We don't know who is Phlebas, but Phoenician, we are reminded of, I think it's line 47. Those tarot card, you remember those cards? And one of the cards is the Phoenician sailor. The Phoenician sailor. So Phlebas the Phoenician. There is this reference to this Phoenician sailor here. So here we have now I'm reading from a little notes. Phlebas the Phoenician is likely the drowned Phoenician sailor of line 47. Already in line 47, there is this Phlebas the Phoenician. Phoenicia was a wealthy maritime empire on the east shores of Mediterranean, including the coasts of the present-day Syria, Lebanon, southern Turkey, and spread the worship of its god Adonis throughout the classical world as it expanded its commercial influence. You know, Adonis was the famous Greek god, one of the very beautiful, handsome young men, Adonis. And there is always this marriage between Adonis and Aphrodite, the other, goddess of lust or sex or love and beauty. So in Alexandria, this was an Egyptian city on Nile Delta. According to Jesse Weston, we have been, hearing about Jesse L. Weston's book. Now, this god's spring feast, that means Adonis' spring feast, began with a solemn and joyous celebration of the nuptials of Adonis and Aphrodite, at the conclusion of which a head representing the god was, with every show of mourning, committed to the waves. So they put into River Nile this head of Adonis after the marriage between Adonis and Aphrodite. So there was these customs, rituals. And this was carried to, within 7 days, to Byblos, that means in Lebanon, where it was received and welcomed with popular rejoicing. So there used to be this carrying through the river, this god. Now here is saying Phlebas the Phoenician. So there's a Phoenician. A fortnight dead. He has been dead fortnight. 2 weeks have been passed. He's dead. So Phlebas is dead. Forgot the cry of gulls and the deep sea swell and the profit and loss. So along with his death, Phoenicia was a trading port. He must have been a very prosperous trader, making a lot of money. But after death, what is there? He is now dead by 2 weeks. He forgot the cry of gulls and the deep sea swell and the profit and loss. Cry of gulls, sometimes in the wide sea, the sea of gulls, perhaps that's the only thing that the life that you may see in a wide sea. And the deep sea swell, the movements, the tides, and the profit and loss. Actually, you have to balance the profit and loss, the balancing, the balance sheet. All this is gone. The bookkeeping. Your life is gone. With death, everything is gone. A current under sea picked his bones in whispers. After his death, maybe he is given a watery funeral. Sometimes they say, if you die on a ship, they will tie something onto your feet and drown you. The dead body is put into the sea. So current and the sea picked his bones in whispers. It means very quietly, the whispering movements under the sea, and he rose and fell. Is it the change of his body or the waves? Maybe sometimes under the water, underwater, you can see these in the swells, the body rising and falling. He passed the stages of his age and youth, entering the whirlpool. So he passed through all stages of, perhaps in the old sciences, the life of a man has been divided into various stages. Sometimes 3, sometimes 7, sometimes 10, different stages. But anyway, he rose and fell. Perhaps he relived all this memories underwater after his death. As he rose and fell, he passed the stages of his age and youth, entering the whirlpool, the deep movement on the sea. Gentile or Jew. So Gentile or Jew, perhaps this whirlpool is important because in the mythology, when this whirlpool is mentioned, we remember about how there's a Greek mythology, how Odysseus or Ulysses, he goes for this great voyage, and he has to go between these two, sometimes we say devil and the deep sea. The same way, Scylla and Charybdis. The Scylla was perhaps a 6-headed monster on one side. He was already warned about this. And Charybdis is a whirlpool. So you will either go into the whirlpool or eaten by this big demoniac thing. What he does is he sacrifices perhaps, I think, 6 of his sailors and escapes from this. That's how Odysseus escapes. He sacrificed 6 men. Perhaps when you are talking about this whirlpool, you're reminded of that. And he says, this Phlebas the Phoenician, he went through all these stages and entered into the whirlpool, entered into the final conclusion of your life. And somebody is maybe exhorting, Gentile or Jew? Gentile or Jew, whoever you are. This is the old biblical way of saying. It is especially in Romans. St. Paul speaks in chapter 3. He's saying, what then? Who is better, Gentiles or Jews? So Gentiles or Jews, or believer or unbeliever, whoever you are, Christian or non-Christian, whoever you are, or you who turn the wheel and look to windward, consider Phlebas, who was once handsome and tall as you. Now suddenly, perhaps Tiresias, or the poet, turns to each one of us. Hey, you who are reading this, my story. Sometimes from Kerala, we have this Chautu Nadagam. In Chautu Nadagam, That is a foot stamping drama. So the story will go on. In between, the Kattiyakaran, he will come and directly address the audience and talk to the audience in some way. In many other types of drama, sometimes, even as you are listening to the story, maybe one person will suddenly come and address the audience saying that, hey, you are this person. You're talking of this? Now look at this. Perhaps what they are going through is what's happening to you. So in the same way, suddenly the narrator is coming out and saying, hey, you who are listening, you who are reading this, whoever you are, this is your same predicament. Or you who turn the wheel, that means you think that you are living very beautifully. But think of your life. You turn the wheel. Wheel is important. Wheel of fortune. Sometimes you have this luck. Or in most of the mythologies, especially in Indian mythology, Eastern mythology, wheel is important. Wheel symbolizes life. It is going on. The wheel is life. Wheel can also be turning the wheel, can be turning the ship, the steering. Or today, not only the ship, even the car, you have the wheel. Everything we have wheel. So there's a controlling wheel. So wheel can be a controlling wheel that way. Or the wheel of fortune, tarot cards, there's a wheel of fortune that can be. Or in the Upanishads, there is the wheel. That means in Indian thinking, sometimes, if we are at the periphery, we think the wheel is moving. However, you are to the periphery, the movement is faster. But as we move closer to the center, which is symbolically to the unmoved mover. Who is the unmoved mover? He is the Lord of the universe. So as you become closer to the mover, then suddenly you become still. Finally, sometimes we say that at the center of the wheel, there is a hypothetical place where everything is still. A hypothetical place where it is still. Yet, that center is moving. That is the unmoved mover. So God is the heart of the wheel, is God. So when you are finally at the heart of the wheel, then you are not perturbed by changes. You are not disturbed by changes because everything is still. So here, you think that you are turning the wheel. That means you think that you are controlling. But remember, consider Phlebas. It is good that you think of this Phoenician sailor who was once handsome and tall as you. He too was very handsome, very attractive. He was very tall and graceful like you. But finally, he also died. He also lost everything. And now everything is gone. So this short section becomes a little bit of a turning. Not only the depth of Phlebas definition, but it is a question to every reader to look back into one's own life, and wherever you are, in whatever way you are living, but life is transitory. This fire that is burning you, it is time for you to re-examine your lives and take a U-turn and make a difference in your lives. I think next we will go to the final part. I imagine maybe 2 more sessions and we can finally conclude.
We can give summer break to the people who really want it.
Was that summer break after that?
Summer
Any comments, any thoughts?
This was like very interesting. When you were talking about the Buddhism, I recently heard from Father Bobby about Thomas Merton.
Yeah.
Thomas Merton is mentioned
Thomas Merton,
by Bishop Barron also multiple times about
yeah.
his-
Merton, yeah.
yeah. But I heard from Father Bobby. I never read Merton, but I heard
Yeah.
from Father Bobby that recently when he was talking about Merton, Merton was very much into Zen Buddhism.
Yeah.
And
Zen
he was
Buddhism.
telling like in the 1950s before he died, or 1940s he died, I think. At that time, he was saying, he said that the third millennium will be a combination of Buddhism and Christianity together.
Oh.
Yeah, that is what he was working on. You know, his death is also mysterious. How he died in Bangkok, Merton.
Oh.
So Merton did a lot of work on that, and then
I didn't
actually,
know that.
yeah, Father Bobby is also saying that he gets a lot of inspiration from Buddhism.
Okay. Yeah, good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was connecting very well. And
Mm.
then another thing I checked is I wanted to know what is Moorgate. Actually, I looked
Yeah.
Google and found that Moorgate was one of the city of London's northern gates in its defensive wall, the last to be built. The gate, the gate took its name from the Moorfields, an area of marshy land that lay immediately north of the wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the gate was demolished in 1762, but gave its name to a major street, Moorgate, laid out in 1834. So, it is like a marshy land turned into a name of a marshy land turned into a modern cultural
Yeah.
change.
In my notes also, it's one of the old gates of London and now the heart of the financial district.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when I was hearing that, she said that my feet is in the Moorgate, but my heart is under my feet. It is such a tragedy of humanity that even though we are in the best of your financial wealth and your level you can achieve, your heart is still somewhere beyond your control.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. Sometimes very externally affluent and flamboyant and attractive, rich people. Sometimes their tragic life is big testimony, very disturbing thing. Okay, then we'll continue next week.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye.
Yeah, bye. Have a good evening.
Good evening. Okay.